There is a feeling that haunts every human being, a quiet, suffocating darkness that creeps in when you believe you have no control. It is the feeling of powerlessness, and it is something the human spirit was never designed to endure. The question is not whether you will face it. The question is, what will you do when it arrives? Robert said, the feeling of powerlessness, it's something human beings simply cannot endure for long. When that feeling settles into your bones and stays, something inside you begins to warp. Psychologically, you turn inward. You become resentful. Anger pools inside you, deeper and deeper and deeper, until you no longer recognize yourself, until you've lost control of the very person you thought you were. He paused, then continued. So where does power begin? It begins with yourself. The first and most essential form of control is mastery over your own emotions, so that you're not constantly reacting, not constantly exploding, not constantly at the mercy of whatever someone says or does to you. You cultivate a degree of detachment. And from that place of calm, when the moment comes where you need to move or influence the people around you, your children, your spouse, your colleagues, your boss, you're able to step back. One step, two steps, breathe, think, and ask yourself the real question: what will actually move this person in the direction I need them to go? How can I influence them effectively without breeding resentment, without creating enemies in a way where our interests quietly align? That, for me, is what power truly is, Robert said. It begins within. It begins with the ability to detach from the chaos happening around you. It is the capacity to strategize, to look at every situation in life and say, this single move will gain me a fraction of control over events. You will never have complete control. Life happens. Pandemics happen. Black swans happen. You cannot command the universe. But that sliver of margin, that thin edge of control, is enough to help you glide through life with a steadier hand. Jefferson replied, when I think of power, what you've just described is the perfect definition. It is one's ability to control or influence another's behavior, and perhaps even one's own. You have personal power, you have relational power. Who in the dynamic between husband and wife, between partners, holds the greater influence? And then there's political power, the capacity to construct, to influence, to write laws and shape societies. He leaned forward slightly. What I find fascinating is that the people I speak with are always searching for power within themselves, always asking how they can improve their own lives. Yeah. And where I teach is in the realm of communication and the power of words. This is why I'm drawn to several of your laws that speak directly to communication, particularly the principle of using fewer words. How do you see communication and power intersecting? Robert replied, they are completely and inseparably intertwined. But here's the problem, and most people in this world think communication simply means talking. They believe that if they just speak, this is what I want, this is what I need, please help me, that they've communicated. But all they've communicated is their insecurity and their neediness. True communication is effective, Robert continued. It is strategic, because the reality is this: other people are naturally resistant to helping you. They have their own problems, their own stress, their own exhaustion, their own battles being fought in silence. So when you come at me spewing everything you want from your side, I'm half listening at best. And honestly, you're irritating me because you haven't once considered who I am or what I'm carrying. Robert's voice grew more deliberate. True communication is what I described before. You take that step back. You put yourself in the other person's shoes. You climb out of your own head, because most people are so self-involved that their words land on empty ground. You step out and you realize, I am dealing with another human being. They are not me. They have their own fears, their own desires, their own struggles. Right now, in this very moment, what is happening in their world? Sometimes that requires research, he said. Sometimes you know them well. Sometimes you don't know them at all. But you have to figure it out. It's a puzzle. And once you understand their side, not yours, what they want, what they need, now you hold the power to craft what you say. Now you can appeal to their self-interest, which is one of the most powerful laws of all. Because if I speak in a way that serves their interests while also serving mine, watch what happens. Their eyes light up. Every defense they've built begins to lower. The walls come down. So communication is absolutely worthless unless it is strategic, Robert said firmly. And the principle of saying less than necessary, that matters deeply because the natural human tendency, without self-control, is to spew words endlessly. Verbal overflow, my problems, my life, this is what's happening to me, this is what I need, on and on and on. Stop. Talk less. Think more about what the other person actually needs, and craft your communication with intention. Jefferson replied, I wrote a book recently, and it's nearly impossible to write a book without leaving pieces of yourself inside it. When you were writing this book, what was surfacing in your own life? Were you simply studying these elements of influence and power from a distance? Or was this, in some way, a letter you were writing to yourself? Where did it come from? Robert replied, it came from two places. First, a very deep desire to help people, he said. I don't write books casually. I'm working on my 8th book now, and with every single one, I think deeply about my audience. Writing is a form of communication, and I want to help people deal with their problems in a real way. Not to satisfy my own ego, but to create words that can actually be absorbed into someone's daily life and change it. Robert's tone shifted, growing quieter and more reflective. The second source, and this is the one people don't expect, the book came from pain. I entered life the way most people do, naive, innocent. I was not a natural player of the power game. I made mistakes. I talked too much. I outshone the master. I could walk you through a laundry list of every law I violated. I didn't understand that the world is political. I thought that when you entered the workforce, what mattered was results, getting things done, doing them well. But that's not how it works. I suffered deeply. Robert continued. I worked in the film world and I suffered there, but I've had over 50 different jobs in my life, more than 50, across every imaginable field and avenue of life. And in every one, I suffered from the same realization: people are political. Their egos are involved in everything. You can see their egos walking past you in the hallway. Robert recalled, I worked for a time at Rolling Stone magazine, and I watched the hierarchies. There was the boss, Jan Wenner, and you could see this massive ego moving back and forth through the office like a force of nature. Then there were the people working beneath him, each carrying their own smaller egos. And then there was me, a copy editor in the corner, a tiny, tiny little ego. But that was what made things run. How well you impressed him, how you spoke to him, how you navigated the room. I thought it was silly, he admitted. But I also thought this is the real world. And you have to take the real world seriously. You have to succeed in it. Robert said, so the book came from deep pools of pain, from my own mistakes, and from a profound desire to help other people, because I believe this is the source of so much depression and misery in life. You say something or do something thinking you're on the right track, thinking it will help you. And the next thing you know, you're fired, demoted, and you don't even know why. I watched it happen to people around me again and again and again. Those are the two strands of the book: a deep desire to help, and the hard one realization that the world is political, full of egos, and that mistakes are costly. I made plenty of them. Jefferson replied, "You're not alone. We've all made mistakes." Looking back now, knowing the impact the book has had, I want to talk about it for those who haven't read it, or those who might hear this and think, I need to pick it up again. How do you find that this topic can also be healing? Robert replied, I, I receive so many emails from people who tell me the book turned their life around, people who started businesses because of it. I know it's anecdotal, and I'm sure there are stories out there of people who were hurt, who found themselves on the other side of manipulation. I understand that. But what's healing, what's truly liberating, Robert said, his voice lifting, is the moment that little light switches on inside your brain and you finally see how the world works. You realize, I didn't know. I thought what mattered was just being myself. I thought I could do my job, say what I liked, dress how I liked, just be me, and that would be enough. And then you suffer for it, and then that switch flips, he continued, and you realize, no, the game is different. It's played differently. There are rules. You can't walk into a poker game and just do whatever you want. You can't sit at a chessboard without knowing how the pieces move. If you don't know the rules, you're playing terribly and you're suffering for it. Robert said, that shift in perspective, that moment where you go, maybe I'm entering this game from the wrong angle. Maybe I'm being too selfish, too self-absorbed. Maybe I'm not thinking enough about the other players. That shift can be deeply healing, deeply enlightening, because it's not natural to us. It wasn't natural to me. And that's what has helped so many people. People who, like me, entered the working world a little innocent, a little naive, and got broken by it. Jefferson replied, how can you tell if somebody is trying to manipulate you? Robert replied, here's the hard truth. If someone is truly skilled at manipulation, if they understand how to seduce you, how to wrap their words around you, how to make you believe they're wonderful, and that everything they do is in your best interest, you won't realize it, not until it's too late. That's why in my book, The Laws of Human Nature, Robert said, I tell people, and you need to identify these individuals before they enter your life, before they start charming you, before they start enchanting you, before they pull you into their dramas, because once you fall into that trap, it is almost always too late. Most people, though, aren't master manipulators, he noted. Most are passive-aggressive. You can sense it. There's a subtext beneath everything they say. You can feel it intuitively, something in their body language, something in the rhythm of their speech. It doesn't quite ring sincere. Robert continued, the key is learning to read character, to identify the types of people who exist in the world. Some are brilliant at manipulation, not because they read my book, but because it's in their DNA. They're naturally political. Your task is to see through them. Here's the paradox I explore in the 48 Laws of Power, Robert said. It's a game of appearances. How you present yourself matters enormously. Act like a king to be treated like one. Recreate yourself. People judge you by what they see. So you must control your own appearance. Project power, project composure. But simultaneously, you must see through other people's masks with laser precision. See through the games they're playing. See through the appearances they're constructing. He went on, even the great manipulators give off signs. They're not perfect. They leave crumbs, little clues that reveal the game they're running. That's why I wrote The Laws of Human Nature, to give people tools for identifying the great narcissists, because most master manipulators are toxic narcissists. You have to spot them before they enter your life. And I teach you how to identify people consumed by envy, a deeply dangerous type who will become your closest friend in order to sabotage you. You have to recognize them before they get in. Robert concluded, there's no simple formula. It's in their character. It's in their body language. It's in the small signs they leak. And your job is to never mistake appearance for reality. Jefferson replied, for the people who read this book, who truly understand it and put it into practice, they're going to be able to influence and, as a verb, manipulate people toward their purposes. Do you find that readers come to this with ill intent or good intent? I know you've had enormous feedback over the years, and I'm curious about what you've seen. Robert replied, let me clarify one thing first. Not every law is about manipulation. Take create compelling spectacles. It's about creating something that draws attention, something that brings pleasure into the world. You could call it manipulation, but it's also just trying to create something beautiful, something magnetic. I don't see every law as being about manipulation. But to answer your question directly, he said, I've said this before, the people who are genuinely nasty and evil at the game of power, they're out there. I'd estimate maybe 3 to 5% of the population. Maybe I'm overestimating, but here's the thing. They don't need this book. They've been learning this since they were 6 or 7 years old. Many had troubled childhoods. They were wounded early. And from that pain, they learned this is how you get people. This is how you string them along. This is how you get attention. This is how you get mommy and daddy to notice you. This is how you make the teacher like you. Step by step, a year by year, they refine the craft. By the time they enter the workforce at 22, they've been practicing for 15 years. This book, if they read it, it merely confirms what they already intuitively know. Robert paused. Do I deny that some percentage of people read this book and think I can use this to be truly terrible? No. I don't deny that. I have to own it. I'm not naive about how the book is used. But the vast majority, he said with conviction, and I know this from the emails I've received, hundreds of thousands of them over 20 plus years, are people who were like me. Naive, people who didn't understand the game, who entered the workforce carrying illusions that were bred into them by parents and schools that never warned them. Nobody teaches you that there are manipulative people out there. Nobody tells you the world is political. Nobody says everyone has egos, and those egos will shape everything. Instead, you get sugary self-help books telling you to just cooperate, to just be a good person. And then you walk into the real world and nobody prepared you for the slap. Those readers, they grab hold of this book like water in the desert. Robert said, finally, someone is teaching me something real. That, I believe, is the majority. I could be wrong. There's no science behind it. But that's what I believe, and that's who the book is for. Jefferson replied, what I've found in my own life, so much of what I've encountered ties back to early childhood. People who are proficient at lying, at manipulating, at exercising power, they learned it because at that point in their life, there was utility in it. They could get mom and dad to stop arguing. They could hold the family together. They could keep themselves from being abused. They mastered it because they had to. And then you have the other side, People who think everything is roses, who get hit with a tidal wave the moment they enter the real world. It doesn't matter how nice I am, they're going to be cruel. It doesn't matter how cleanly I play, I'll never get anywhere if I don't learn the rules. Nobody taught them the hard truths. Robert replied, exactly. I wrote a book about warfare, The 33 Strategies of War, and one of the concepts in it is asymmetric warfare. It's what we call dirty warfare, guerrilla warfare, terrorism. It's warfare where the rules are thrown out entirely, where you're willing to do anything. It usually originates from armies that are smaller and weaker. You leverage your smallness by being as ruthless, as immoral, as dark as necessary to gain power and hurt the enemy. And here's what happens. Robert continued, the other side, the one that plays by rules, that has ethics, that operates with integrity, they're at a continual disadvantage. I think of someone like Putin. He's willing to do anything for power, anything dark, anything ruthless, whatever works. And you have European democracies with their rules, their bureaucracies, their institutions, and they're constantly at a disadvantage facing someone willing to cross every line they won't. We see the same thing in American politics, he said, and we see it in your life, in your office, in your relationships. When there are people whose ethics are thinner than yours, who are willing to do things you would never consider, you are at a continual disadvantage. You won't do the dirty things they do. So how do you defend yourself? Robert answered his own question. You become strategic. You don't have to become evil. You don't have to lower yourself to their level. You don't have to fight fire with fire. You can do other things, disrupt their plans, deter them, outmaneuver them strategically. But you have to understand the asymmetry is real. There are people willing to do what you are not, and that will be the source of a great deal of pain in your life. Those toxic narcissists, the range of what they're willing to do is vast, and yours is narrow. And so you'll be hit by things you don't even see coming, because as a good person, you don't register the darkness until it's already upon you. Jefferson replied, I want to read a quote that hit home for me. Understand, people will constantly attack you in life. One of their main weapons will be to instill in you doubts about yourself, your worth, your abilities, your potential. That's from your chapter on transforming self-love into empathy. My question is, how do we build communication habits that handle these attacks without internalizing them? How do you stop people from planting doubt inside you? Robert replied, this is from the laws of human nature, and it comes down to self-love. But first, we have to clear up a misconception. There is a profound difference between narcissism and true self-love. True self-love is what you learn, or should learn, between the ages of 3 and 5. Robert explained. You learn that you are fundamentally a good person, that you are worthy of love and affection. That as you grow, you develop skills and abilities that have real value, that can contribute to the world. When you have that foundation, you have an anchor. You have a bedrock of confidence. So later in life, when the blows come, when people attack you, when they try to sabotage you, when they insinuate that you're not good enough, yes, it hits you. It depresses you. It brings you down. We're all human. Nobody is immune. I'm not immune. But if you have that self-love developed early, you rise back up. You catch yourself and say, no, that's not true. I know who I am. I know what I've accomplished. I know the people I've helped. This is a game they're playing, and I'm not falling for it. Robert said, it's like a thermostat inside you. It gets pushed down, but it rises back to where it belongs. But if you were wounded early, if you never develop that self-love, if you're already riddled with doubt and insecurity, if you're covered in invisible wounds where things can leak through, then when someone plants those doubts, you go down and you don't come back up, or you come up a little and then someone else hits you and you go down further and further until you're depressed and finding your way back feels nearly impossible. Robert's voice grew more intense. So what do? Whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, you build it. You go back and you say, I'm beating up on myself. I have all these insecurities. These people are effectively manipulating them because I'm allowing it. And here's the most important thing I can tell anyone listening. Robert declared, when something bad happens to you in life, you have two choices. Choice one, you blame other people. That evil person manipulated me. They did this and that. Woe is me. I'm the victim. They're bad. They're terrible. If you choose this path, if you're always looking externally for someone to blame, you will never grow. You will never develop. You will spend your life circling the same drain. Choice two, every time something bad happens, you look inside yourself and you ask, that person manipulated me. That narcissist got into my life and did damage. What is it about me that let them in? What was so innocent, so naive, so unguarded in me that I believed what they said? If you can learn from these events, if you can look at yourself and say, why did I let them hurt me? Why did their words land? Maybe I don't love myself enough. Maybe I don't have enough confidence. How do I build that? Then you go back to your foundation. You remember what you've accomplished. You build it slowly, brick by brick, day by day. Robert said with finality, but if you cannot look inside, if you cannot say, something bad happened and I need to learn from it, and maybe some of it is my own fault, then you are sunk for the rest of your life. You will never develop. You will never rise. Jefferson replied, I want to make sure we touch on the project you've been working on. I believe it's called the sublime. Robert replied, the law of the sublime, yes. Jefferson said, can you tell us about it? Do you have a release date? Robert replied, I'm finally happy to announce, yes, it should be out in October of 2026. Jefferson said, that's fantastic. Robert replied, I've been working on it for 5.5 years now. Every single day, constantly, it's been a roller coaster. And to see the end approaching, it almost brings tears to my eyes. I can barely handle it. Jefferson said, this will be your 8th book. That's incredible. Can you give us a preview? Robert replied, it's influenced in part by a near-death experience I had 7.5 years ago. I suffered a stroke. I came that close to dying. My wife saved my life. I was driving my car here in Los Angeles. She looked at me and saw my face falling apart. Something was terribly wrong. I was behind the wheel, completely unaware. She forced me off the road. She called 900 Llewellyn. They arrived quickly. If any one of those things hadn't happened, if they'd been a minute later, if she hadn't recognized what was happening, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be dead, or I'd be in a vegetative state. Robert said, life is a very thin thread. You can slip off the edge at any moment, and you're not even aware it's happening. He continued, and the sublime is the understanding that to be alive, to simply be alive, to fully see the world as it is, to see birds, to see nature, to see human beings, to realize that you and I are speaking through this device right now that 50 years ago would have been pure science fiction. It is utterly mind-blowing. But people don't realize it. Robert said, a note of sadness in his voice. They walk through their lives with their phones pressed to their faces. They're reading about what someone had for breakfast. Their minds are shrinking. They're not opening up to the infinite, to the vastness of this world, to the staggering fact that we exist on a living planet in a cosmos that may have almost no life at all. That it evolved to this, to us, to human beings, to everything we have, it is unbelievable. Robert's passion was unmistakable now, and I'm trying to open people's eyes. Each chapter explores a different aspect of what I call the sublime. I write about childhood, how all of our childhoods were naturally intense, naturally sublime. I explore how consciousness itself is weird and sublime, how other animals experience the world, how we can study and empathize with other species. Love, a sublime quality. History, our ancestors, ancient civilizations. I describe what the ancient city of Babylonia looked like. The ancient world was unbelievably beautiful in ways we can barely imagine. 12 chapters, 12 windows into the sublime. He held up his hand. And the journey of writing it, this hand I'm holding up is partially dead because of my stroke. I can't type. I've had to handwrite everything, every word, and then digitize it into the computer. If you saw my process, you'd say, "My God, I can't believe you got a single paragraph out." Jefferson replied, "That is incredibly impressive. I look forward to everyone experiencing it when it releases in October. It's something to deeply admire. I appreciate you sharing that." I want to wrap up with a question you've probably received before. Now that you've had 20 plus years to look back, you stopped at 48 laws. If there could be another, one or two that you'd add, do you have one? Robert replied with a smile. The 49th law is this. There is no 49th law. He elaborated, to be honest with you, when I finish a book, I move on. I'm on to the next project. I'm on to seduction. I'm on to war. I'm on to mastery. I'm working with 50 Cent. I'm so absorbed in whatever is in front of me that I don't look back and think, what did I miss? I tell myself you covered it. Move forward. Don't look back. That's my guiding philosophy. Jefferson replied, that's a philosophy I can relate to. I appreciate, from me to you, your dedication to your art, to your projects, and to what you've chosen to share with the world. Power, as you've said, is a neutral tool. And here's what I've taken from our conversation today. 1, power is the ability to control or influence another toward your desired outcome. And those who don't have it, they're the ones who feel powerless, who feel left behind, who were never taught these tools. These are the lessons you teach, not written off the top of your head, but researched globally, across ages, across cultures. They give people a genuine perspective of what the real world looks like. 2, when it comes to dealing with people who attack you, who try to put you down and plant doubts inside you, their ability to do so is directly proportional to the degree of self-love you've invested in yourself. Those with higher self-love will be less affected. They'll rise back up. And 3, the law of the sublime. Even as we sat here talking and a coyote wandered by outside your window, the appreciation for life and how precious it is something we should never forget. Jefferson concluded, Robert, thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your heart with me and with this audience. Robert replied, thank you. It's been a joy. Power is not what you take from others. It is what you build within yourself, one choice, one reflection, one act of self-mastery at a time. The world will not always be kind. It will not always be fair. But within you lives something no circumstance can steal: the ability to step back, to see clearly, to choose your move with intention, and to rise. Every single time you are pushed down, that is power. And it begins the moment you decide to stop being a passenger in your own life and become the one who holds the wheel.